With the release of Cyberpunk 2077, everyone and anyone has been playing it. But what kind of rig do you really need to kind of get the most out of it? Well, we thought we'd put that to the test today with pretty much one of the most extreme rigs you can build right now. Let's do this. Is your GPU running so hot that you can literally cook baked goods off of it? Well, MP5 Works have you covered with the stylish and functional BPC backplate cooler, keeping temperatures low to maximize performance and overclockability. Yes, that is a real word. Easy to install and implement into your existing custom loop, the only downside is your food will forever now be cold. But your GPU will be cool too. The MP5 Works BPC backplate cooler, available in both acetal and acrylic. Click the link in the description to find out more. Now with the system, we're thinking 4K. We're thinking kind of really something that can play Cyberpunk and can play it well, albeit it may have some glitches, but that's not the hardware's fault, that's the game's fault. And hopefully, Cyberpunk have come through and said that they are going to fix things. So we will talk through exactly what the spec is as we kind of do things. Not even going to focus on the case yet, and that is probably the main part of this build, because it's all going to be about airflow. It's all going to be about trying to make it look nice. And we've kind of gone with a whole, let's not go full on RGB, because we've done them types of builds over and over again. So starting with the motherboard, I know this is a bit extreme. I mean, the clue's in the name. It's the X570 Aorus Extreme. And the reason I've gone for this was, as I mentioned, I don't really want to go full on RGB. I want something a little bit different. So the case is white, the board is black. Hopefully you can kind of see where this is going. And this is pretty much the creme de la creme. I'm not even sure what I'm going to do with this system after, whether we're going to use it, who knows, whether we're just going to do it for the sake of this video and then off we go. But I'm kind of feeling the black and white theme is going to go quite nicely. I'm probably going to turn off all the RGB, but I have every single feature known to man on this board. So I do know that the motherboard is pretty much worth what most people's builds are. I think this comes out about £700 or $700 at the moment. And to pair with it, we have got the Ryzen 9 5900X. And the reason we went with that is, well, why the hell not? If we're gonna do something this extreme, we should be going for pretty much the creme de la creme when it comes to processors. So Ryzen 9 5900X. We could have gone with the 5950X, but I don't know, it just didn't really offer anything above and beyond this. And it's the same for our graphics card that we'll talk about in a little bit more detail. The next thing we want to do is put our storage drive in. So we are actually going to need some tools for this. Handy dandy eTeknix toolkit available on store.eteknix.com. So we're going to find our right Phillips bit for the right kind of size. And we're going to put it into the top slot. Purely because it makes sense to do so. If you are using multiple drives, you will find that this particular board has a slot here, here, and also I believe under here. So we're going to take this off. And you are going to find that this is where we're going to put in our drive. And drive-wise, we're going with the Seagate FireCuda 520 2 terabyte, because apart from Cyberpunk, we're probably going to end up installing Call of Duty on here, and Call of Duty needs 2 terabytes the way that things are going. Slots in like that, and then screw it down. If you haven't got your motherboard screws and everything actually in the motherboard, they will be inside the box. Memory-wise, we've gone with something a little bit unconventional. We have no RGB on the memory. This is the Patriot Viper Steel, and it's a 16 gig kit. And we happen to have 2 of them. So we've gone with 32 gig. Complete overkill, but we had it, so why not? So we've gone with 32 gig, and we haven't just stopped there with a large capacity, but 3600 or 3200 megahertz memory, like most people would go for. We've instead gone with 4133 megahertz, which is just astronomical. I'm not even sure if this is going to run 32 gig of 4133 megahertz. I haven't checked any QVL lists for this board, but Gigabyte generally are pretty good when it comes to compatibility for memory. And I like to live life dangerously. So we're going to see if it actually works or if it just completely blows up in my face. Not literally blows up, but yeah. Now I mentioned at the start of this video, I didn't know what this rig was going to be used for, but now I'm kind of thinking maybe we could use it for production, because we have 32 gig of RAM. We could potentially do something there. It's worth noting as well, if you did want to go for something with RGB, the Patriot do make Viper RGB memory. I think it's fairly new as well, so you know, basically looks the same as this, but it has RGB on the top. So, you know, there's kind of something for everyone. When Be Quiet actually sent us this case, they did send us the Shadow Rock 3 cooler as well. 190 watt TDP, so it's going to be fine for the 5900X. Now, I haven't actually used a Be Quiet cooler in quite some time, purely because their old mounting mechanism was absolutely terrible, but I believe it's changed now. And that looks pretty damn nice in the white. And again, adds to our kind of monochrome look. Why doesn't it stand up? So where it's kind of off center, it doesn't stand up. So yeah, be careful with that. Now in typical Be Quiet fashion, they do give you a screwdriver that comes with it, but we're not going to use that. It's just, you know, it's all about the eTeknix screwdriver. Trust me guys, store.eteknix.com. It is amazing. Other things that we need, Intel. Is anyone still using that? Now, I joke, obviously I do think Intel may come back with something and it may be very, very good. But at the moment, it's all about AMD and they are sort of the winners at the moment. Now, I can confirm that Be Quiet's mounting mechanism has got better. Not dramatically, but it has got better. I don't know, maybe I just kind of prefer something a little bit simpler where you don't need multiple hands to just install the bracket because you have to hold the back bracket while holding this bracket, and oh my god, I've turned into a Verge video. Bracket, bracket, brace, brace. Now, I am gonna kind of eat my words a little bit. The mounting mechanism seems to be a lot better than Be Quiet coolers in the past. I have discovered one thing, however, and that is that my fantastic screwdriver that we sell on store.eteknix.com doesn't fit. So I guess that's the reason why they give you a screwdriver. The only thing I don't like, and this is just a little bit of a personal thing, this screw doesn't actually fit into the hole that you need to take it into. It's magnetic, which is nice, but you have to actually kind of get the screw into place first, then kind of put this down and screw it in. I don't know, it's just a little bit, I feel like it could be a little bit better engineered, but who am I to say? I am not an engineer in any shape or form, unless it comes to capacitors, right? We're all engineers. Now, when I'm building a system, I always like to kind of take it apart as much as I physically can, because firstly, it makes it easier to work with. Secondly, it just gives you a little bit of a better idea as to how things go together, where things go. And these are chunky, not chunky, these are chunky. These are some solid panels and acoustic foam as well, so things are gonna be nice and quiet. Obviously only on that side because we've got tempered glass on this side. But it does look like pretty much in typical Be Quiet style, everything comes apart, which I kind of like. And on top of that, they do give you some accessories, which I'm really kind of keen to use because this means airflow. We have a mesh panel, we have a mesh front. We're going to be using both of these because we want that airflow. So we can use that. Is there anything else we can kind of take apart? I mean, this is just for shipping, but yeah. Everything here seems like it's kind of modular in some shape or form. I mean, everything kind of comes apart. This comes off. This comes off. This will come off eventually. Just needs a little bit of light persuasion. And this comes off. These come off by the looks of it. Everything on this whole thing comes apart. I mean, when I said it was modular, I wasn't kidding, guys. It's just, what's going to be left once everything's off? It's just going to be bits of metal down the side, and that's pretty much it. Now, there's a couple of reasons I chose this particular motherboard to go with this case. Firstly, the case has eATX capabilities, so it made sense to go with a board that was, you know, going to harness that. Now, the other thing I like about this case is, once we do that, the board is standing upright because it actually has one of them standoffs that allows you to do so, because I find it a lot easier to actually install a motherboard vertically like this instead of horizontally. Obviously gravity isn't going to go in your favor, but having that standoff in the middle that kind of lets the motherboard sit and hook on there just makes life so much easier. So yeah, this board also has a built-in rear I/O shield plate. Every single motherboard should have that. It's not an expensive feature at the end of the day. Now, power supply wise, this is something very, very important, and it's probably very important and even more important now because of this. Now, anyone who's looked into getting a 30 series card, when you first saw the specs, you're probably like, that's a lot of power, you know, needing an 850 watt here, a 750 watt there, a 650 watt there, you know, for even say the lower end PSUs. And even when I saw it, I was a bit like, that seems excessive. That's a bit much. That's a bit weird. And it's all to do with the graphics card. And it's all to do with the fact that the power on them actually spikes up a little bit. Now, when I say spikes up, you're talking a 3080. I think it requires an 850 watt power supply, if I remember right. And for the most part, when we've done our own internal testing, we've realized that the whole system as a whole, with a 3900X like we use on our GPU test bench, only really gets up to like 400 odd watts. So why do I need an 850 watt? Well, the reason that you need that 850 watt power supply comes down to the fact of the spike. And the way that when you load a game or a certain task that's going to utilize the graphic power of a 3080, 3090, 3070, 3060 Ti, what's going to happen is it's going to spike up and then come back down. It's going to spike up and come back down. And that's why you need it. And that's why we've gone with the Be Quiet Straight Power 11. It's an 850 watt power supply. It's 80 plus gold rated. It's made by Be Quiet. We know it's going to be good. So that's why we decided to go with it. So with all the cables done, we did actually realize we do need SATA because this case has got a fan controller and it's all powered by SATA. Luckily, all the fans are included in the case. All to magically come already kind of pre-installed to the fan controller. So it's just a matter of hooking it up and away you go. Now it's starting to look a bit like a Vision of beauty, and what better segue into using the Vision graphics card. I know, it takes us a very, very long time to think of these things, but this is what we're using. And I haven't actually ever had, horrible noise, I haven't ever had a Vision graphics card from Gigabyte. They kind of look like they're aimed more at the, I don't know, professional market as opposed to, you know, the gaming market. It's got a little bit of RGB on it from what I can see, but not a huge amount. It's got just a really premium kind of look to it. So this is going to be interesting. Oh, wow. Come on, come on. Like, that's not even funny. That is one beautiful looking graphics card. I mean, admittedly, if we put it in horizontally, it's just going to kind of sit like that. We could, in theory, have it in vertically, but I don't know whether the CPU is going to allow us with the cooler, but yeah. Things are looking okay there. Might be a little bit too close to the glass. I don't know, it's a tricky one, but at least we have choices, and that's kind of what I feel like this case is all about. So looking at the GPU and trying to have it vertically, it doesn't have a mount as such, and it is going to be kind of sitting at about this height, which for me is touching the CPU cooler. I'm not incredibly happy about that. And there's something that I've realized with the 30 series cards, that they are just that little bit taller. Even when speaking to EK about water blocks and things like that, they've kind of, you know, made it very clear that some of their water blocks won't even fit in some of the biggest cases. And that's not their problem. It's because of the size of the PCB. So you're kind of stuck with certain choices, I guess, depending on the card that you go with, even with a water block, which generally reduces the size of your graphics card quite dramatically, actually. The build is complete, and I'm actually really, really impressed. I mean, you can barely see any cables. Admittedly, that's because of partly the motherboard we chose, having them right angle connectors. But yeah, the case has definitely worked for us. And there are a few things that we still need to do. So as I mentioned, these come with a case as well. So we have the dust filter that's going to sit on top, which is going to, you know, improve our airflow. And then we have the front panel that we want to change, because I'm sure a lot of people at the beginning of this video would have been saying about, you know, the front panel, how there's no kind of, you know, ventilation or anything like that. But, you know, we are prepared to change that. I mean, even that, look at it. It's just, wow. Ridiculous. It really, really is. So you really do get the choice. I mean, this choice isn't going to come in cheap, but you do get what you pay for. So, you know, it's entirely up to you which kind of way you want to go with that. I mean, dust filters galore, I have to admit as well. They're just kind of here, there, and basically everywhere. But the build is complete. That is one aspect of what we're trying to do here today. The second is to see exactly how this performs in Cyberpunk 2077. Before I forget though, we do need to put the side panel on this side as well. And I tell you, these weigh an absolute ton. And I mean, that's kind of a good thing though. It just kind of quality. And of course we have to do this. Is there a better sound? I don't think there is. So, system is built, everything is looking good. We did have to tweak around with a few things. For some reason, Gigabyte are now doing kind of what Asus used to do, and well, actually still do, in terms of Ryzen processors. When you set things to auto, it actually ends up putting the voltage of the V-core stupidly high. So our 5900X was actually running at about 62 degrees idle. As soon as we came out of Windows and went into the BIOS, you could literally see it creeping down as that voltage went back down to about 0.9. Because of the range on it is just so aggressive on the high end. We also did find that 32 gig of 4133 megahertz memory does not work, so maybe we should have checked the QVL list to start with. But we wanted to get some baseline figures and kind of see where things are. So on the CPU, we are looking at a minimum of 46. We're currently sitting at 46 degrees, which is perfectly fine for a 5900X. It's got a lot of cores and very, very fast cores at that. The GPU is sitting at 43 degrees, and looking at it, the fans are actually turned off. So again, that's perfectly acceptable. Let's get into Cyberpunk and hope that firstly, our temperatures remain at a reasonable level, and secondly, that the game doesn't crash. Okay, so Cyberpunk is loaded. I've got my new car. Anyone who doesn't know how to get this car, you basically go to the right-hand side of the map, and there is a tunnel, and you can go get the car there, and it does about 211 miles an hour, which is just ridiculous. It's still terrible at handling, just like every car in Cyberpunk. I mean, every vehicle in Cyberpunk. But the thing we're looking for is not about, you know, cars and driving. It's about the performance and how this system next to me is performing. I can hear the fans. It is noticeable, but I haven't tweaked any of the fan curves or basically done anything to anything involving the fans at all. And I've realized I've gone the wrong way. I just want to sort of go around, let the system warm up a little bit, because there's no point sort of, you know, testing things as is. We can crash as well. But what we want to be looking at is in the top left corner. We want to be looking at what kind of temperatures we're getting. And just to show you guys what kind of settings we're using, bear in mind, this is a 3080. These are pretty much the same settings I run at home on a 3090. And we have the preset set to Ray Tracing Ultra. We're using a 4K monitor, and these are the results, these are the settings that we're actually using. So everything is pretty much on high and ultra. There's only two settings that the preset doesn't set even higher, and that is screen space reflection quality, which is set to ultra. You can actually go up to psycho. And the other one is the ray trace lighting, which again, you can go up to psycho. Really, I don't think you're even going to notice a difference between them. DLSS is set to auto. We can go for something like performance, and we're going to see potentially a little bit of graininess. That's the sort of trade-off that you get with DLSS, but you do end up getting slightly better performance. I mean, we're getting 51 frames per second. If we go into settings and change that up to ultra performance, we should see an improvement. So what are we getting now? Now we're getting 74. But again, you're going to notice just the quality and the graininess. I don't know, it's not perfect. I prefer it. I'd rather have a slightly lower FPS, but have things looking a little bit better. So I'll change back to auto. I mean, there are a lot of settings in here, and we will have like a dedicated feature for looking at what kind of performance results you can get and what graphical settings really come down to diminishing returns. So let's get into something that's gonna sort of tax the GPU just a little bit. Try and get some temperature up. And yes, I am using Mantis blades. They are probably the best upgrade you can get in this whole game, because you can do stuff like that. I should have put like a PG-13 or even an 18 warning on this, but you know, this is where we are. This is Cyberpunk. and we've basically done that. So we're getting 45 frames per second. Now, when I actually stream this game at home, I end up getting anywhere around 30 frames per second, because generally speaking, I have to set VSync on, because when I'm streaming, this game just doesn't like to stream and look good and not lag and stuff like that at the same time. And this is what we're left with. So back into HW monitor, we haven't changed anything. We've literally just come out of the game. Our maximum temperature on the CPU is 60 degrees. Our maximum temperature on the GPU is 68 degrees. And we were running this for, you know, a good sort of 10, 15 minutes. I'd expect that to go up a slight amount. I'd expect the CPU to go up to maybe 64 degrees. The GPU, I don't think it's going to go much further. I think maybe you're talking 70, 72 degrees at a push. But I can literally feel the airflow on the front of this case. It's just ridiculous. The airflow around the back is ridiculous. And just think, we're only using this case with the fans that come included. The two at the front, the one at the rear, obviously the CPU cooler and the fans on the GPU. We could put another one in the bottom. We could put more in the top. That's what I really like about the Silent Base 802, and I'm really glad that Be Quiet sent this. Me and Adam, the cameraman, were even talking off camera about what has this case not got, and how much is it? 150 quid, 160 if you want the window version. Or it might even be the other way around, £10 cheaper for the solid sort of panel version. But look at what you get. You get the ability to actually completely invert the motherboard tray. You can have your expansion slots at the top if you so wish. You get the weird kind of grommet-y features of cable management. You get two different front covers, two different top covers, tempered glass. You get acoustic paneling on the side as well as the solid front. The ability to put a fan in the bottom, vertical GPU mount. I can't think of anything. I mean, just looking at it, radiator support, huge amounts at the top for even the thickest radiators. Same with the front. There's nothing on this case that it just doesn't have. So while it may seem expensive, 150 quid, I honestly don't think it is. I think it's well worth the money. And yeah, if you decide to install this kind of system into it, it can play the latest game, Cyberpunk 2077, on the greatest settings at 4K, look amazing, perform amazing, and there you have it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, you know exactly what to do, and I will see you in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.